Welcome back to the Leakyvws YouTube channel. And if you've seen the last couple of videos, this is a pretty familiar sight for you. This is my 1987 Volkswagen Scirocco 16 valve, and it's been up on these stands for quite some time now. And that's because this car needs a lot of work. It's been abandoned for the last 20 years, and I'm going through the process of completely reviving the car. One thing this car has been missing is a exhaust system. I bought the car and it completely had zero exhaust on it. It was just the open header all the way back to the catalytic converter, and starting the car, it sounded horrible. I mean, you can just listen to it here.
Sounds like an old tractor.
But today we're going to be changing that. So here I've got some stainless steel piping, and let's see if we can't make an exhaust. So living in the Northeast, especially buying these older Volkswagens, I'm no stranger to having to fab up an exhaust or two just to get by. However, I've never tried to actually fabricate an exhaust made out of stainless steel, so this will be a new experiment for me. I'm not really sure how it's going to go, but I figured I would try it. The stock Scirocco 16 valve exhaust also has a dual tip, and I didn't buy one of those because they were expensive, so I'm going to see if I can try to fabricate one of my own. But anyway, let's look at what parts we have here. So here are all the materials I have to work with. So starting over here, we have the full stainless steel exhaust piping kit. Now, I actually have double of all the pipes you see here, but I just couldn't fit it on the fab table in a nice manner. I got this kit on Amazon, and I think it was like around $90. Then moving down here, we have V-bands. I think I spent almost as much in V-bands as I did in the actual piping, but the reason I wanted to do V-bands for this exhaust is because I haven't had the greatest luck with using the other style exhaust clamps, either being the slip fits or the U-joints. The slip fits, I always seem to have exhaust leaks after driving the cars. I like my cars particularly low, so especially living in Pennsylvania where the roads aren't the greatest, I always seem to hit my exhaust in the ground, and then the clamps come loose and the exhaust start to leak, and then I smell like straight pollution. And then the U clamps, they always squish the exhaust, and then when you want to take it apart, it never comes apart easily, so then you end up having to cut part of the exhaust off and refabricate it, especially when it gets rusty after driving the car in the winter. Luckily, this car I don't think I will drive in any sort of inclement weather, so I won't have to worry about that. Also, it's stainless steel, so I'll never have to worry about it rusting. So if you've never seen a V-band before, it's basically two connectors that go together, and then they're clipped together with a clamp like this. And the style is usually preferable on a lot of higher horsepower cars. This is obviously not one of those. I think this car makes maybe 130 horsepower on a good day, so I'll never have to worry about that. I also chose 2.5-inch exhausts, which might be a little bit too big for the 16 valve. However, when I bought all the kits, I was expecting to actually swap the car and not stick with the 16 valve. But obviously plans have changed since then, and I'm staying with the 16 valve. But this exhaust will be good enough where if I do plan to upgrade power in the future, it'll be able to support that. Now moving down, I bought a Borla muffler this time. On all of my other cars, I tended to use the MagnaFlows, and that's usually just because they're a little bit cheaper. But my dad actually has a Borla on his Corrado, and I've always liked the way that it sounded. So I wanted to give that a try for this car. And then moving over here, I have a Flowmaster straight through muffler. I believe it's actually a resonator. This was actually the one that was originally on my Rabbit. If you saw that video, I drove that car all the way from Michigan to here, and we basically cobbled it together in a weekend. So I ended up saving it because it is a good muffler, but I'm not sure if I want to use this on the car, but I have it just in case it's really loud. So my plan is I'm basically going to fabricate a almost like a straight pipe kit where I can use, if I get another V-band, I can just swap out the radiator, or swap out this length of tube for this muffler so I can make it a little bit quieter, or if I want it louder, I can just swap it out and make it louder. So the next thing that's going to be key for making this project work is this wire here. Now this is a flux core stainless steel welding wire. Now if you didn't think that it existed, neither did I, but I found this on Amazon, and I'm not sure if it's actually going to work, but I figured I'd give it a try. And that's because recently when I tried welding with using my welding gas, there was something's wrong with this welder. It's mostly probably because the welder it's probably honestly as old as I am. I got this for free from my uncle when he upgraded his welder. I've used this welder for a while. I use it to rebuild my Rabbit's engine bay, but halfway through that rebuild, I noticed that it was welding weird and the gas wasn't properly coming out of the welder, and I haven't been able to fix it, and instead of fixing it, I'll probably end up just getting a new welder anyway. But for now, I figured I'd try this and see if I can actually make this work. If you can see up here, I have Tectonic's really nice tri-Y header for the 16 valve. The only issue with that is that this header is a 2 1/4 header, and the exhaust piping I'm using is 2 1/2. So I'm going to have to step up the exhaust from 2 1/4 to 2 1/2. So the big problem here is that this header is a 2 1/4 header, and my exhaust piping that I have is 2 1/2 inch. So I have an adapter to go from 2 1/4 to 2 1/2. The only problem is that right here you can see that the exhaust pretty much immediately bends right after where the header hits. So that adapter is not going to work with how the setup that I have. So this here is a 2 1/4 V-band. I bought this because I knew that I was going to have this issue, and I wanted to have a V-band on the actual header itself just to make disconnecting the exhaust easier. So if I put these two together, you can see that the OD of the adapter and the exhaust pipe are very close to the point where I think that I can make this work. So what I'm going to try to do is try to weld this V-band just like this. That way I don't have to worry about using that adapter and it kind of making the angle weird for that bend of the body. So I've immediately already run into an issue here with trying to plan out how I'm going to fabricate this, and that's this little piece here. Now, to do this properly, I'm going to need two 45-degree bends to make an S shape. I'm going to need a 45 bend here going this direction, and then I'm going to need a 45 bend going this direction. So the big problem here is that the kit that I ordered only came with two 45-degree bends, and making that S shape would use both of these. So effectively, I would be out of 45s. And from fabricating another exhaust very similar to this one, I know that I'm going to need probably another two 45-degree bends making the over the axle part. So I've run into an issue here. However, I think I've come up with a solution. So if you're not familiar with exhaust fabrication, this is a pie cut. So what a pie cut allows you to do is basically take a straight tube like this and make a bend. So all I've done is I basically set up my chop saw here to cut at a 22.5 degree angle. Now, the reason I'm doing a 22.5 and not a 45-degree angle is because when you make two cuts at a 22.5, you total them together, it makes 45. So once you cut this, you flip it 180 degrees and then cut it again, you get a piece that looks like this. Now, this of course is not stainless. This is just some leftover exhaust pipe I had laying around just to make sure that my math worked correctly as I was thinking. And after a couple of trial and errors, obviously this first one I cut too thin. Second one was also just a little too thin. And this one, I think I got to a thickness where I'm happy. So I'm gonna try this on my stainless steel, and I'm gonna do two 45-degree pie cuts. All right, well that last cut was really scary, but we have our first 22.5-degree cut. Just rotate this, and then I can't really see it now, but that's like roughly 180 degrees. So now I'm just going to push this to a little over 2 inches, and that will give me what I need for my pie cut. So here's the first pie cut. Now I have a little bit of, I don't know what this is, but like a little hangover here. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but I am going to probably just clean this up with a grinder and we'll just go from there. But in theory, this is our 45-degree angle. So this is all we need. So now I'm just gonna cut another one of these and then we'll be good to go. So here are my pie cuts. I think they honestly turned out pretty good for my first attempt. I don't have a deburring tool currently. I just ordered one, so it'll be here tomorrow. So that's where I'm gonna call it for tonight. Once I get my deburring tool, I'm gonna deburr this, and then these should be good to weld up. I'm not even gonna bother showing you the first one because trying to weld mild steel to stainless with flux core wire did not go well. But so what I got here is the design that I need to do for down there. So got about 3/4 of an inch, and then I have this pie cut, and we're gonna attach them kind of like that. And this is the 2 1/4 V-band, so I have to be very particular about how that gets welded. But I'll get something like that, and then once this is welded, I'll show you kind of what I'm going at for underneath the car. tacks went pretty well. I just have 2 tacks on there just in case I have to redo what I'm doing. And that this centerpiece was not, my eyeball measurement was off. Obviously I do have some gaps to fill because again, like I'm using a 2 1/4 V-band going to 2 1/2 instead of using the adapter because I don't really have much room to work with here. So let's just see what this looks like on the car. So I have you strategically placed here with the clamp so that you can't see the booger well. It's on the, I'll just show you. Yeah, it didn't go very well. I'll clean that up later, but it works for now. So, what I'm gonna do, this is going pretty much exactly the way I want it to go. The V-band fits, doesn't hit anything. So now I'm gonna measure what I need to fit right here. So it'll be a straight and another 45, and then I'll do another like V-band right here. That way I can have my straight piece here that is removable so that I can swap out the resonator or a straight pipe whenever I want. I'm not really sure how well you can see this with my hand kind of in the way, but as you can see, it goes pretty much exactly where I want it to go. I have it spun really weird. But yeah, so it goes right where I want it to go, which is good. I don't know if you can really see that. I'm at a horrible angle right now, but oh, I almost dropped it. But yeah, so cool. This is good. So now I can weld this fully up and go from there. Okay, so after looking at these welds, I was like, I don't know why I'm this bad at welding. I figured it out. It wasn't me, it was the welder. So I had the welder set up, the polarity set up how you do flux core, which is, I guess, reverse of what a normal welder is. But when I switched it back to how it's normally with MIG when you're using gas, this is before and that's after. It's just so much better of a bead, and I'm glad I tried that because now that's so much better of a weld. Unfortunately, I've already done all these beads without that, so I probably should have tested more, but I guess you let me learn. I'm starting to get the hang of it a little bit here. Now that I got the settings dialed in. I gotta clean off the slag, therefore. I got a couple of spots that I missed or I burnt through the pipe. So I just gotta clean off the slag so I can get a good ground again and then just kind of patch those holes in, and then this piece will be finished. Not my finest welding work, but I went back over everything and made sure that there was no leaks or anything, checking with a flashlight, and I might honestly even smoke test this thing just to make sure that it has no leaks after it's all installed. But for now, it's pretty good. I have the welder definitely more figured out now than I did before. A lot of this is just trying to clean up the boogers, and once it's boogered, you can't really make it look good without just grinding it all the way down and just making a nice bead. But honestly, you're never gonna see this. So as long as it's sealed and sounds good, that's what matters. I forgot to show me cutting this straight, but the straight's now cut for the connection parts of the back. I also figured out that the back is not just a straight 90, it's more somewhere between like a 45 and a 90. It's probably gonna be like a 65 to a 70 degree angle, so I'm gonna have to make a pie cut for that. But for now, I'm just gonna weld this V-band onto here, and then we can test fit this pipe to see if we need to take a little off of the end there, and then try to make that pie cut. So big shocker here, my exhaust is kind of pointing towards the ground now. So when I welded that together, it must have warped it, or I must have not fully made the 45s like perfect. So now that this pipe is like pointing down, it's a little bit more than it actually is now because the jack's not fully jacked up under it. But what I'm gonna do to alleviate this is I'm going to do a little bit of a splice just after the V-band there, and then I'm going to just grind down the pipe a little bit at an angle until it sits where I need it to sit. So I got this one welded together now, and started playing with the settings some more, and actually got a decent pass there. I just upped the voltage a little bit, and it seemed to like that better than, I guess these are like really cold welds, and I just upped the voltage a little bit, and it liked it a little bit here. The only problem I was having with the higher volts was that I was blasting through this thinner pipe, but on the thicker V-band flanges, it seems to do pretty good. Little by little, I'm starting to get it, but I definitely think that the settings are getting close. They're just so ugly. I don't even want to show these, but I just went over everything, made sure nothing was leaking. I just shined the light through there. But, you know, first time welding stainless, I didn't really know what to expect, but I think, like, that's almost promising. Again, I don't, like, it's just kind of spattery from being flux core, and I probably am not cleaning off all the slag before I'm welding each one, so it'll be helpful, I'm assuming. The next biggest challenge I just ran into. So underneath, the pipe to go from the straight to the over axle piece to kind of, I guess, shoot the exhaust out this direction. I thought it was a 90 degree from the other exhausts I've thrown together, but the fuel tank on the Scirocco is a little bit different than the other Mark 1s. So it's not really, you can't get away with just using a 90, and you can't use a 45 because that's not enough of an angle. So somewhere going to be in between that. So I tried to make I honestly don't even remember what this cut was, but it was somewhere around like a 70 degree cut to try to get an angle. But what I was running into is that the OD of this pipe, cutting it this way, is much, it's hard to see with my glove on, but the OD is much larger, as you can see, than the pipe. So to alleviate that, I discovered that cutting shallower angles actually make the pie cuts able to be used because it doesn't deform, or cutting at an angle doesn't sort of mess up the outer diameter of the pipe. So what I did was I tried to cut 7.5 degrees on each cut to make a 15-inch degree pie cut, but my saw wouldn't allow me to go to a 7.5. It had to be either a 7 or an 8. So I chose an 8. So these are 8 on each side, making them 16 inches. So 16, 16, 32. So 2 times 32, 64. So we're gonna try a 64 degree bend and see where that gets us. And then if that's not somewhere that I need to be, I'll make the last pie cut. I'll take off one of the 16 degree ones, and I'll make it a little bit more, like maybe like a 20 degree instead of a 16, and we'll see where that gets us. So far for the mid pipe, I've kind of decided that I'm not going to do the interchangeable resonator thing with this exhaust, at least in its current shape, just because it would be more of a pain to have like another V-band here and have a V-band here, and honestly it's not really worth it. If it ends up being too loud, I can always go back and fix it, but for now this is what I'm going to stick with. So I'm going to just weld up the rest of this. I just have a couple of these things tacked. I'm going to weld this rest of this up and we'll go from there. So I'm currently trying to make the over axle pipe, and I can't just get everything to line up correctly like how I'm wanting it to. Not even really the bends I have for each bend are working. So I have it in a good spot right now, but I just can't quite get the angles to line up. So my idea is, I have figured out that this is kind of where I have another mark on the pipes down underneath the car where I want this to line up. But I figured out is that if I go in like about 1/4 of an inch on the opposite side of this, and then I cut it at a slant or at an angle, it should kind of give me the angle that I need in order to mount the pipes up to each other and still give me the angle to clear the gas tank and the rear beam. All right, well, eyeballing it actually kind of works. That pretty much is the angle I was going for. So this lines up good to where I want it to. So it'll sit in the car kind of like that. So I'm gonna tack this up and see if we can actually clear the rear beam with this, because that's my only concern, is I don't know if it's gonna be able to fish its way through there. So I might have to redesign how all this connects to each other. I have this tacked to the one pipe so that this can technically be moved, but we'll see. So this over axle pipe took me entirely too long to make. I think this is probably about maybe like 3 hours worth of just cutting, tacking, untacking, recutting, reshaving, but now I'm finally happy with how it all lines up here. We're good for clearance on both the tank and the rear beam. This shouldn't vibrate or hit anything. This is about as high as the exhaust will ever go. This is actually the height that I want it to sit at. I have a little transmission jack there kind of holding it in place up at the header. That way, when I have the exhaust together, I can just weld the hangers to it, and so this is kind of where it will sit. And if it's sitting right exactly where it is, it's perfect. Now, the reason I took so long with this piece is because when I did this on my Cabrio, when I made the exhaust, it always vibrated on the rear beam because I didn't take enough time to make sure that it clearanced everything when it was at its resting position. So I wanted to make sure that this time I took my time and made sure that everything kind of lines up good. It's kind of hard to see, but I'm having trouble kind of mocking up where I want this muffler to kind of sit because of the angle of my pipe. The muffler is actually sitting higher than the over axle pipe, so I'm going to do some weird like angled thing to make that work. But I kind of have this pipe just sitting here as a mock-up. I'm gonna make my own tips, but in order for this to line up correctly, because this is honestly the most important part of the exhaust for me, is making the tips look good. So what I'm actually gonna do is I went online and found a template for making a Y pipe, which will be a good start for my tips. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these out and then make the Y pipe so that I can make my exhaust tips. And then once I have my Y, I can figure out how I want to route the rest of the exhaust. So here I have the template. I'll put on the pipe here. I'm just using this 90 because I don't think I'm gonna have to use this for this exhaust. And I'd rather save the straight that I have for making the actual pipes that come out of this Y here. So I'm just using the leftover stuff that I have. So what I'm gonna do is just trace the template. Now the template is traced, I can just take this off. And there we can see that, if I can get this thing off, you can see that that's the line I have to follow very carefully with the grinder. And I can cut that out, and then I'll have to move on to tracing the next piece as well. So now I have the second template out. Now I have to cut out actually 2 of these, one for each of the Y branches. So I got all these pieces cut out now. And in a perfect world, these would just fit perfectly together, something like this. But this is my world, and it's most certainly not a perfect world, so there's definitely gonna be some gaps I'm gonna have to fill here. But, you know, that's kind of the idea there. So I'm gonna weld this together, and then once it's together, I'm going to probably end up cutting these at like a 45-degree angle or something in order to kind of get the pipes to come together a little bit closer, because I need to have my pipes going this way, not obviously like that. So I got this all welded together, and it came out pretty good. Only problem is that these are going kind of away from each other when they should be going more this direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a straight line straight across here, just to kind of get the angle here. You know what I'll actually do, because if I cut straight across here, it's going to make the pipe too big. So what I'm going to do is go kind of half where I need to go. So what I'm going to do is basically make a pie cut. So I'm going to cut this at half of the angle that I actually need, and then cut the straight at the other half of the angle to kind of make it straight, if that makes sense. But you'll see what I mean when I actually do it. Wow, it's almost like there wasn't a gigantic gap that I had to fill multiple times. But anyway, once I grind off these boogers, you'll never know. Overall, though, I'm actually really happy with how these came out. I did not think this was going to come out this good, but I'll take it. That's pretty good. So here's the mock-up of the tips. It's kind of what they'll look like. Got a piece of wood on there just to level it out, because the transmission jack doesn't really work on the angle that I have the tips at. You can see from straight on, they're kind of fitting the factory. I tried to line up the best I could with the factory angle of the rear valence cutout. So now I'm gonna final back and do the muffler section of the exhaust. So I finally got this thing figured out. This took probably, like, honestly 4 hours to try to figure out how to get all this to play nicely with each other. Also, me being one person, I was fighting. My garage kind of slopes downwards right here, so I had that little transmission jack, and it kept sliding down on me every time. So then I would have to remove it, and then it would move everything out of the way, and it was just a struggle. But finally got it this way. So now I just have to have everything tacked, so I just have to carefully fully weld everything up to make sure not to warp anything. And then once that's done, I can throw it back on the car, bolt up the V-band, and then we can start working on the hangers. So I got the rest of the exhaust welded up, and now it's on the car. Everything is good. It's hanging a little lower than I would have liked, but just happens to where everything kind of fell in place. That's where it wanted to be. So I don't think it'll be an issue. The car's gonna be low, but I don't think it'll be that low where it'll matter. So yeah, overall, pretty impressed. So let's get this thing on the ground. So this is the first time I've had this car off the jack in a while. And yeah, it's pretty slammed. I forgot how slammed it was. I definitely need to raise the front a little bit, and probably lower the rear as well. I did kind of mess up, and I ordered one size too small rear tire, so the front diameter of the tire is a little bit bigger than the rears. But going underneath the car, you can see that this thing it's pretty close to the ground. So that might lead to some issues, or it'll create really cool sparks as the car is driving down the road. And you know what? I'm gonna take it. So if it becomes a problem, we'll fix it. But until it's a problem, it's gonna stay. But just look at how nice those dual tips came out. It's awesome. And that brings us to present time. As you can see, the Scirocco behind me is covered, and this is kind of how it's been sitting for about couple weeks now. I've been dealing with a few issues that is part of owning a old classic car like this one. Some of the wiring that was in the stock wiring harness, every time that I touch something or seem to move something, it seems like another system either fails or some brittle wires decide to snap, and I like to do things right the first time, so I've just been going through and replacing a lot of the wires that I find are damaged or I think will become an issue in the future, and that's been preventing me from fully tuning the car. If you're waiting on the full tuning video of the Inventronics system, I promise that's coming soon. I just need to finish ironing out a few issues, and then this car will be ready for the road. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I read everyone and really appreciate any sort of feedback. Also, let me know if there's anything specific you want to see on the channel in the future. But with that, I'll catch you in the next one.